I am excited for today's guest. This is the first time she's been on here. Her name is Annie Brook. She's a therapist, a somatic healer, an author. She's got an institute. She's got all kinds of resources for people dealing with very unhealthy relationship patterns. She deals with trauma. She deals with birth trauma, adoption trauma, so many things. Here she is. Okay, Annie, I see you. Let me see if I could get you on here. Hopefully, yes. Annie's going to talk to us about how to basically stop the toxic relationships.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, Lisa, hooray for our tenacity. Thank you so much.
I know. I'm so glad this worked. So,
Me too. Me too.
yeah. So, Annie, before you even officially introduce yourself, a lot of people in situations like ours and in this community feel like, well, I don't ever want to put myself out there again after getting out of this awful relationship. I just have a bad picker, and I'm just going to have to accept that for the rest of my life. There's nothing that can be done about it. So, what do you think about that sentiment?
I think that's a normal sentiment after being through the hellacious experience that people go through. And I think it's a hopeless sentiment. And I would like to invite people to consider something else. No one can talk you out of hopelessness. You know, it's a gut feeling, it's a broken heart, it's an exhaustion. But sometimes we default to a hopelessness so deep in our brainstem that it could have started in childhood. And what I want to have your listeners understand and get tools to help themselves is that hopelessness doesn't mean you're broken. It does mean you can do something about it when you think about and kind of integrate the sensations of your body with your awareness, and you intervene right when that hopelessness starts, because hopelessness will drag you into a black hole. Now, sometimes, you know, I do work with adults, families, children. I've been in the courts, you know, testifying for children. It's not fun. And I've had a horrible lawyer accuse me of having a meth lab in my condo. I mean, I've been through the mill with the courts, and it broke my faith in the justice system.
Mm,
So I hope, you know, I still hold that faith, but I'm not naive. And what I can probably say about all the people who follow you is they're not naive, that
yeah,
they have been through it. And
yeah,
so what I would like to offer is ways to maybe consider starting over with your wise self present, your wise self that learned all this stuff, that knows what's possible, but it doesn't mean it's probable. It just means you went through it. Now, how do you reorganize and heal at a very primal level so that you don't keep repeating the same habits?
yeah.
You know, I work with people where sometimes they have chronic accidents, and like, why is that? And really, Lisa, it's that we can set up a pattern inside our brain all the way based on our very first stress experience, which is usually the experience of being born.
Mm,
Yeah, nobody thinks about that because it's before we can think, right? Why would that matter? But I know for myself, I was born premature. I was in an incubator. I didn't have any touch for 17 days. And, you know, luckily I had a very loving family. But my nervous system was wired, one, to try to be perfect, and to have, you know, high temperatures. And I had to learn how to de-stress myself. And it wasn't, I'd done lots of therapy, really good, you know, body-based therapy. And then it wasn't until I discovered the earliest impressions from pre and perinatal that I got real relief in my body. I got some relief, but to get the real relief was to go down to the thoughts and experiences that were encoded before I could think. And those are things where you might think, oh, the world is always dangerous. or I have to, fix or help somebody so much in order to survive. And that's where adults can lose perspective in relationship.
Yeah.
They,
So, Annie, can you officially introduce yourself and tell us a
sure.
background?
Thanks, Lisa. I love just jamming on, so thanks for that. Yeah. Okay. I am a body-centered, what's called a somatic psychologist. I run an institute to train therapists. I have tons of online courses and short video courses, and I have a free Instagram account with lots of tips and tools about how to help yourself, because I think most people help themselves with good guidance. It's not the therapist that's going to have the magic bullet, but
Hmm.
if they have the ability to listen to you and to stay present and teach you how to be present in your own body, and that's where your power comes from.
Yeah.
It's,
So you mentioned, early experiences that happen before we can even think. How did those impact our ways to attach to others?
we call that in psychology terms, and I like to make things understandable. So anytime I'm going off on a tangent, Lisa, you just interrupt me.
Okay.
Okay? Yeah, good. I like that. Yeah. So when a baby is born, after they're born, ideally they go rest on their mother's chest and they regulate safety by feeling her temperature and her heart rhythm and her breath and smelling her. It's so primal. It's sight, it's sound, it's smell, it's weight and pressure and temperature. And that helps the baby relax after being born. Now, so often in what they call a good enough birth, the baby is taken off to the nursery. Or if it's a C section, the baby is taken off to the nursery, or dad holds the baby because mom's still recovering and having surgery. So the baby is a primal, like sensory organism. It is just looking, seeing, smelling, and it wants to connect. Think about in utero, ideally, there's a good enough connection. Sometimes, if a baby's going to be given up for adoption, the mother won't connect with the baby, but usually there's a good enough connection. And then after birth, the baby has to refine that connection. And they have to find it in relationship not to swimming around, but to air and weight. And they don't even know how to walk yet. So the baby is very, very dependent, is what I'm trying to say.
Hmm.
And so we call that time frame attachment. How does the baby bond with the mom? And so that dynamic, nobody has to be perfect, but that dynamic sets a template. And it happens in the earliest decisions about, is the world safe? Will I survive? Are you going to keep me safe? And how am I going to make it? Because that's our primitive imperative in our brain. It doesn't mean we can't laugh and have fun and do all these things. We're joyous beings. But if a baby is left to cry in the crib for too long, or if my mom had it, she had postpartum depression. So when the hospital finally called her and said, your baby's ready to come home, she was like, what baby?
Mm,
And that's so sad.
yeah.
Luckily, she was loving and she got over it. But my early experience was nobody's here. I'm in this box. I can't get myself out of it. And I need to wait for somebody to help me. And so that was my experience. So, what I listen for with adults is what was their experience? Do you have any stories about your birth? Or we look right at adult behavior. Do you let someone get so close to you so fast? Do you always avoid your own instincts? And so you're overriding your red flags when you meet somebody. do you get blindsided? And the people that come to your expertise have been blindsided. Sometimes they've been blindsided by a personality disorder. And that is really, it's very easy, to think, you won't ever, you're afraid that you're always going to make that mistake again.
Well, also, as you're saying this, I'm thinking when you use the word blindsided, many people who this has happened to are blaming themselves.
Yeah,
They don't
yeah,
see it as being blindsided. They don't see it as being manipulated. They see it as it's my fault that I didn't
that's,
choose better. And it's echoed by often the people that love them because they're like, how could you, who are so brilliant and so successful in other areas of your life, have been blindsided by someone like that? How did you not know? So there's a lot of
yeah.
shame associated with this.
This is a really great question. I'm getting warm here. I'm just gonna get comfortable. Um, shame and self-blame are one of the biggest losses of power, of personal power. And I have a free PDF article called Turning Off the Light Switch of Shame. People can go to anniebrook.com, free PDF library, download the article, because when you've lost the felt sense in your body of your own potency, I call it, you're going to make funny decisions. You're going to have self doubt. You're going to turn your anger into self attack. And when I have a whole little video I made about working with self attack thinking,
Hmm.
because I used to have it. I used to have perfectionism and self attack thinking. And the perfectionism part was, I didn't realize this until my 40s when I'd really been deeply immersed in the pre and perinatal work, that I was afraid I'd go back in the incubator if I wasn't perfect.
Hmm.
That's a pretty primitive fear. It's way buried and it took a while to even recognize it. And then, of course, then it was no more. It's like, well, that's ridiculous. I'm not going back there. I
Mhm.
don't even fit.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what it showed me is how, I work with a number of children, 4-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 10-year-olds, and they show me through their play the consequences of their birth. And it's just dumbfounding sometimes, the
Can you
intelligence.
be specific a little bit about that? Like, how did they show
Yeah.
you? What does that look like?
Like one little girl, the first time I saw her, I always work with the mom in the room or the dad. So the mom brings her in. She walks into my room, looks around. In the far corner, I had a little Japanese folding screen
Mhm.
to block off the door going to the next office. And you know how those folding screens have like little cracks between the panels. So it's this 3-panel screen. She gets right behind there, and all of a sudden I hear this sound, rip, rip. And I'm like, oh, what are you doing back there? And she goes, very important work, and don't you come in. And she was taking the tape, she was pulling it off the wall, that was soundproof tape, and she was taping up the crack in the Japanese panel. So that little tiny crack, I couldn't see her. And
Mm,
immediately, just because of my, time working with kids, I was like, I bet this is a C-section story,
that's so interesting.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what it turned out to be. She was trying to keep the authority out, and she wanted her mom to come behind the screen with her so that they were together again. And
Wow.
so it's fascinating. I mean, I love these children. They are so wanting to get their world right again.
Hmm.
They don't like it when they're all reactive. And this girl, the reason they came in is she would go in preschool when she had a great family, siblings. In preschool, she would grab another girl, create a barrier, and she wouldn't let the other girl out. So here she was in her own safe space with contact. And then the teachers had to barge in and rescue the other kid. And she would have this screaming meltdown.
It makes so much sense from what you've just described.
Doesn't it? So
So,
those are the things. Yeah.
So what about now? I'm imagining everyone listening here is not a child and they're older and their behavior has changed and they're not behaving like that for the most part. So
Yeah,
you're dealing with people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s.
yes.
How do you work with people where much more time has passed?
Well, the first thing we do is try to establish an awareness of safety as an adult. Like body awareness, when are you too close to somebody, that, spatially, and you stop breathing? Or your attention leaves your own awareness. Like you can't even tell if you're stressed out because all your attention is on the other person.
Hmm. How do you
And
do this?
that's
Like, I'm thinking, do you stand close to them and measure?
well, you can do this with a friend. You can do a little game where you stand across the room and you invite your friend to come, from clear across the room. You invite your friend to come close and you pause the second you have any sensation,
Positive or
eh,
negative?
positive or negative. Because some people want someone just to run over and be really close to them.
Hmm.
And that's not healthy because that's how you bring in people you haven't really vetted.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, it's like a spatial fear of abandonment. So I think a good relationship means I have to bring somebody right in so they don't leave me. That's sort of the hidden story. Don't leave me because I'm afraid of being abandoned.
And we know that a
Yeah,
lot of unhealthy relationships move too quickly,
they move so
too fast,
quickly.
too soon.
Yeah, and it's fun at first. Everybody likes it, and that's the romance phase. And then what usually happens is the power struggle phase.
Hmm.
And that's where nasty behavior can show up. That's where you can start feeling intimidated. The other person can want to, the thing with, I know you work with a lot of people who have been with narcissists. And I say with narcissists, it feels like you're being fed, but you're actually being eaten.
Mm,
And
that's a
they're
good way to
eating
put
your
it.
attention. They're just eating your attention. And so with this little game that you do with a friend, you can slow them down and just have them stop. And your friend can't take it personally or it won't work. They just have to be neutral. And then you relax your body until you're ready for them to come close or further away. So you could be going like this, come closer, and then you pause them, and then you feel yourself and you go, actually, I want you to go back. I need a little breathing room to relax. And we call this breathing room self regulation.
Hmm.
Many people don't have a clue how to do that. And it takes a little adult practice. So, one thing I say is first off, imagine you are holding a ball that's breathing. And these physical practices are what will reinform the body brain connection. So if people just use it as a concept, it's not going to work. So let's all do it. I'm going to ask everyone to just imagine you're holding a ball that breathes. And I want you to do this with your hands so you don't have to do anything, but let the ball do the breathing. Because when there's breathing, there's going to be movement. And this is the key to coming out of a numb place or what's called a freeze response. Because with a numb or freeze, there's no movement. And then there's no connection to our self awareness. So once you get that idea of breath, like, oh, and if you think anatomically, neuroanatomy, cells actually have breath. They have mitochondria, which give off oxygen. When we don't take advantage of that is because we're scared and we're rigid. So you can think of normal internal as a sensory motor cooperation. We receive sensory input and we respond to it. That's a healthy adult. That's like you tell a good joke and I laugh. I like it, right? Things like that. Or you smile and, oh, I feel good, and I might smile back. That's a sort of normal flow. But that
As
flow, go ahead.
I was going to say, as you're talking with doing this exercise of physically moving your hands back and forth, I know that many of us in these very stressful situations, whether it's about to go to court or in a conversation with our ex, we do freeze
Yeah.
and we don't know what to do. And I wonder, is this is something that you can do yourself? I mean, you probably wouldn't do it in
Yes.
front of other people, but just to like remind yourself about movement and also to focus your brain on something outside of yourself.
Yes. I'm going to give you, I think, four things people can do in those kind of right before court emergencies.
Okay.
Because usually when we get that stressed, our brain is going, 100 miles an hour, or our emotions are whizzing all over the place, or we're just completely frozen and we're trying to get in our car to drive. It's not good. So, one of the basic inputs for the body to know it's safe is what's called proprioception, to know you exist. And so you can actually push against a wall, you can push down on your chair. Nobody has to know this. Even in court, you can pull on the bottom of your chair a little. You can do anything that gives you a little sensory input. You can even have your elbow on the desk and push.
Hmm.
Nobody has to know you're doing it. It
Proprioception.
yeah, it's PRIOception, CEPTION. It's actually a type of sensory awareness. And babies who go through the birth canal, when you think if this is the pelvis and this is the baby, they have to enter and then they get kind of squeezed and then they have to rotate so they get all this rotational force and then they have to get through and come out and expand. And so that is proprioception, the ability to feel weight and pressure. And then ideally with the baby, if they get the hello, I see you, I'm so glad you're here, oh, my baby's here, they expand into comfort. And so when you have a little proprioception, you know you exist, then it's very important to have three good inner messages that you can tell yourself.
Okay.
Like, this is not my fault. Another one could be, I'm not crazy, right?
Mhm.
And the
Yeah.
other could be, I'm going to keep breathing and stay present. Because what we tell ourselves matters a lot. And
It,
if we
it,
have, go ahead, you were going to say
it
something.
really does.
Yeah, it's totally what happens is our mental body takes over and our physical body shuts down.
We often say to people, do not doom scroll. Do not look at all of this negative stuff, negative news, social, that is going to ruin your case.
Absolutely. I'm so glad because people don't realize it. That kind of guidance really helps.
Yeah.
So creating another tool is an imaginary hula hoop. And this hula hoop, you just kind of, it's like spatial. It's as far out as your arms go at least, and everybody can try this. And you have to kind of imagine it all the way around you, above and below, and that you can fill out to the edges of your hula hoop.
But it's like
You
a
know,
ball. So
it's like a
it's like,
ball. Yeah. Uh-huh. And you want to breathe and fill it. You want to fill that with your own life force. Because if that's like weak and collapsed, people are going to invade you.
mhm.
You're going to get overwhelmed and feel like you either have to push. And when people get, what do I call it, the wrong kind of activist for themselves, then
Yeah.
they appear too aggressive.
Yeah. Those are
Right?
the we find it difficult to work with.
Yeah. And it's because they're still mad
Hmm.
or they've
And
never.
they're living in the victimhood, as we say.
Yes, absolutely. So having a healthy hula hoop, filling it up with your own energy, and then you can, people can be on the outside edge and they can press against it, and you've still got some power to keep it from collapsing.
Power and
Yeah,
space.
yeah, you need space spatially. People don't understand spatial shock. And spatial is when you didn't have enough safety. You didn't have enough breathing room. Maybe you were the middle child and you got collapsed on both sides. You didn't really think about space for yourself because your attention was always going to the other kids, or the middle child can sort of feel left behind sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And so these are all reality we go through, and we all can have a good enough life, but when we've been under siege in the kind of relationships you're dealing with and helping people through, it's really easy to have a stress response brain. And what we want is a resilient brain. It's really, really important. I'm teaching a class that starts next week called Healing Complex Trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And I give people all the tools that I want to share some of them with you here today. But you start to understand how the brain works, what the body does in its animal nature under stress, and how to do it differently, because we do have healthy cognition. And it's going to take an awake body that's not all, guarded or braced or collapsed, what I call middle tone. So, tone is the resiliency of your body altogether. It means you can think, you can smile, you can breathe, you can ask questions without being, a bulldozer. You can stay relational when you have middle tone. So let's do this. I always like to do these things so people can feel them. So I'm going to invite anybody watching to make themselves really high tone. It's like, watch this with really high tone eyes. You get high tone, and all of a sudden, your breath stops, you get suspicious, you don't take in information clearly. High tone is this, it can be overexcited even, where all you can feel is yourself. High tone, and then, oh, let it go, because it's a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
For some people, it's their baseline.
I
And
know it.
yeah, right? I used to have that. That's all I had. And
Yeah, we
then,
talked about those yesterday.
uh, so under that, baseline, eventually you'll wear out and you'll collapse,
Mm-hmm.
or you'll need to escape into screen time. You'll do something in a collapsed manner, and that's called low tone. So everybody here could sort of let themselves feel like, oh God, I'm so tired. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just so, and this is true if you've been under siege, you're going to be tired.
Yeah. I
So,
mean, it's like living in survival mode. So
right.
functioning, 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 and then crashing.
Yeah. So you have to catch yourself. One, you have to try to get moments of rest. But honestly, if you can find out how to stay in middle tone under duress, like you're making a difficult phone call and you make it from middle tone, and you're in court, can you stay in middle tone? And that's the place right in the middle. Our nervous system, the most simple way to say it, is we have an ability to move and enjoy. We call it healthy play and recreation. And then we have also the ability to rest and digest. And
As you,
ideally, go
sorry,
ahead.
as you're doing that with your hands, I started thinking about how it reminds me of a fish's gills, kind of
Yeah,
gently going back and forth.
that's exactly right, because the breath is important. We need that underlying cellular breath. Like, okay, nothing to do in this moment. I just have to be present. There's
So
no
maybe
way.
people should also think about getting a fish.
Yeah, I fish, there's studies that having a fish is really calming.
Really?
Yeah. I used to just get, one of those little real fancy tailed fishes, the beta, and you
Yeah.
can just put them in a bowl and stare at them, right?
Yeah.
Oh, it's so healing.
This is a brand new suggestion I have never heard before, but makes so much sense.
I love it. Yeah.
Get a fish.
Get a fish, right?
It's almost like a meditative state, like just watch the fish in the
Yeah,
in.
and the movement will help you. It will just remind you of the flow and the movement because that's what we forget.
Hmm.
And so we really, if you can think about, okay, am I in the middle? That one simple thing. Okay, am I in the middle where I'm breathing? Am I in the middle where I have enough rest and digest and enough ability to take action?
Hmm.
Because if you're not in the middle, you'll fall into depression or you'll fall into, resentment, anger, aggression. But if you go back to the middle, wow, here I am. I can make it. And
Very, very helpful.
yeah, and that's where I think we find what I call fierceness and compassion. If you're too fierce, you won't have any friends. And if you're too sort of sympathetic compassion, they'll steal your children,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, how do I have fierceness and compassion blended? Because you never want to lose compassion for yourself or your children. You want to have compassion for your spouse, but if you're under siege, you want to have the right kind of compassion where you've got a hula hoop. You're not swallowing everything they say. You're not thinking you're wrong. You're not self doubting, but you're getting some perspective.
Hmm.
And that's really key. And where that power comes from is actually being able not only to have your hula hoop, but to have your feet on the ground. I study a lot of Qigong, and
Hmm.
there, the actual pressing through the feet is the final pump of keeping yourself balanced. And so you want to put, if you feel like you need more power, you want to push down into the earth. You don't want to push out at somebody. Or if you need to push out, you better push down first, because if you just brace, they're going to push you over. So it's like pushing down through your feet. And you can try it. People watching can just try it if they're sitting in a chair or standing. That literally the soles of the feet have this pumping action through the ankles, through the knees, through the hips. And that's what keeps our spine floating our head.
Annie, this is so helpful. I mean, I love the practical, actionable advice that people can do right now. All they have to do is remember what they have to do.
Yeah, exactly. If you can remember one thing a day, maybe write it down with bullet points, take a picture on your phone, and then you've got it right there on your phone. Hula hoop, breathing ball, push down through my feet. What am I telling myself?
Hmm.
Right? So I want to explain a little bit. Do we have time for me to explain about self-attack thinking?
We've got about 5 more minutes.
Okay. Well, I want to say if people like this, they can go to anniebrook.com or follow me on Instagram, and I give away a lot of free resources. Or you can join a class and be guided. I have a 5-week class coming up online, and it's every once a week for an hour and a half.
Hmm.
And you'll get the experience of a healing journey. It's not just information like a lecture. It's actually experiential interaction that you see yourself or other people in the class making changes.
Hmm.
And that's when we know it's real.
I love how you've walked us through a number of these things, and I personally have gotten to experience it. It made me think about fish, and I mean, the
Yeah.
hula hoop ball thing. So very, very helpful. So
Yeah.
tell us about the self-attacking. talk.
Okay. And I think I have a free PDF about it as well.
Okay.
Basically, if there's too much chaos, an infant or a small child will dysregulate. They won't, and they often won't know if they exist. Like a baby will look to the mother or the father for, oh, a smile. Oh, there you are. You
Hmm.
exist. And then they tell themselves, oh, I exist. And they start to fill in to their skin.
Hmm.
People, if they feel so lost they don't know they exist, I want to say that's existential shock and you can heal it. So the first thing is to, when you feel like you don't exist, you're not sure, push down with your feet and breathe. Look in the mirror, that will show you you exist. And then breathe so that you fill in all the way to your skin. It's taking up space internally and then noticing you exist. And sometimes I have people even use their hand like a little hand mirror
Hmm.
and smile. It's like, oh, there you are, I see you. And you'll see some people are afraid to receive the love from themselves. It's so interesting.
Yeah.
It's a little, pretend hand mirror. Nobody has to know you're doing it. You're having a rough moment and you kind of, get your mirror to wink at you. Like,
Uh-huh.
hello, you're doing great. You're
So you
doing the
don't need to
best you can.
actually see your reflection, but you can imagine.
Yeah. And then you might practice first in a real mirror, and you
Hmm.
might even practice making faces so your face isn't frozen.
Hmm.
When the face becomes flatlined, it influences the whole body. And so being able to have an articulate face, not
Hmm.
a dramatic face, you're just able to move the muscles. So with self-attack thinking, the baby uses the self-attack to know they exist. Oh, if I'm attacking myself, at least I exist.
Hmm.
So they're solving one very primal need, which is, do I exist? And so that the self-attack does that. And self-attack is the fight response, staying alive.
Hmm.
And that help the nervous system thinks it's okay if the fight response is alive. So there you are beating yourself up and you're exhausting your brain and your body's going to go into worry, worry, worry. And then the whole cycle of healthy organ chi, there's like a little clock of energy that goes through the organs all day long. And the spleen is the one that gets into worry. And the spleen holds blood and it's our immune system.
Yeah, we have a lot of clients with autoimmune disorders and
Yeah,
cancer and other things where the body starts attacking itself.
yeah. There's a little thing I call the organ clock with self-touch. So I wish we had 20 more minutes,
I
but I know we
know. I was going to
don't.
say, Annie, we're
Yeah.
going to have you back on because you're just a wealth of information. And I feel like every other sentence is like, here's another thing you can do. And thinking, oh my gosh,
Yeah, right.
so
I
much.
don't want to
And
over.
no,
Go
it's
ahead.
perfect for our audience because they yearn for the information that you're giving.
Well, I would love to come back on. I'll finish with self-attack, but I'd love to come back on and teach the organ clock
Okay.
because it's so helpful. But with self-attack, what you have to do is stop. Like you have a little stop sign in your pocket and you just pull it out and you stop because you want that mental energy to become body breath, movement. You don't want it stuck up here on top of a frozen body. And so using anything to get, sometimes I'll have people get a towel and just twist it
Hmm.
so that you have a little pull. You can feel your muscles. It's another way to know you exist. So if you're on a Zoom call for court or whatever, sometimes they do that. Just have a little towel under the table and just pull on your towel. Anytime you feel like, oh, you're getting bombarded, Just twist your towel a little bit. Nobody has to know you're doing it. Yeah,
So helpful. This is
good.
amazing,
Well,
and we definitely have to continue this conversation another day. So, Annie,
okay.
how can people find you? What's the best place to look for you?
The best place on the computer or the phone is to go to anniebrook.com. And it's just ANNIEBROOK.com. And that's a website full of offerings. My upcoming course is called Healing Complex Trauma or Applied Neuroplasticity. If they join my free PDF library, they'll get a pop-up box how to do that. Then they get my emails that will tell them all about the course. The other best way is Instagram. I do have things on YouTube. And I just love sharing tools that heal, just like you guys.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Annie. I cannot wait to have you come on again.
Okay, thanks so much.
All right. Take care.
Uh-huh.
Bye.
Bye-bye.